Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu sallam wa barak ala abdihi wa rasulihi nabiyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu narrated that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي مَا قَبْلَكُمْ. He says, indeed, from those who came before you, from the previous nations, from the people that came before I was a prophet and a messenger. He says, muhdathuna, or unasun muhaddathun. فَإِنْ يَكُمْ فِي أُمَّةِ أَحَدٌ فَعُمَرُ أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. In Sahih Bukhari, Abu Hurairah narrated that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, before you there were people who were given inspiration, who are divinely inspired. He says, if there's anyone in my nation who has this quote-unquote divine inspiration, then it is Umar. It's Umar. Another version of this hadith states, min ghayri an yakunu anbiya. It says, and they were not prophets. And another narration tells us that these people were among Bani Israel, the children of Israel, those who came before the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There were people who were not prophets, who were not messengers, who had this concept. They were muhaddathun. And there are several different interpretations of this word and what does it mean in the Arabic language and in the hadith itself. And some of them said, yani mulhamun, as we just said, divinely inspired. Others, they said, as if the angels had placed something in their hearts. Others said, يَجْرِ الْحَقُّ عَلَى لِسَانِهِ مِنْ غَيْرِ قَصْدٍ, that the truth will pour forth from their tongues without them even knowing. Without them what? Even knowing. In other words, to summarize all of these different views, the Prophet ﷺ, he tells us of people that were forthright in their decisions, in their statements, in their actions. What they decided, what they made, it was divinely steered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And their actions, what they did, weren't just normal actions, but they were upon the haqq. And their major decisions that they made among themselves, let alone to the Muslims, the ummah as a whole, was what? It was blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it was what? It was muwaffaq. It was something that was straight. So the Prophet ﷺ tells us, and keep in mind, these are not prophets and messengers. They didn't receive direct revelation. They're not rusul, they're not anbiya. But they're righteous men, righteous women who what? Had their heads on their shoulders correctly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, if there's anyone among my followers who has this trait, then indeed it is Umar. So the Prophet ﷺ, he's not telling us that Umar was the only one. Of course not. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu and many others. But from those who have the strongest, from the highest level of this, from the most virtuous of those who have been given this divine inspiration, is Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu. So when you look at the life of Umar, how he lived before he accepted Islam, when he accepted Islam, and how he was an enemy and an adversary to the Prophet ﷺ, to the Muslims, and how he was from the staunchest of his supporters after he tasted that sweet faith. And when he was the leader and the successor of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, and one of the greatest of the Khalifas of the Muslims, we find that many of the things that he did, there lies no doubt what? He set a precedent for those who came afterwards. He was the trailblazer. He was the one who initiated this practice and this concept. And from those practices and from those concepts is what Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, if my memory serves me correctly, narrated that the shura or the majlis of Umar radiallahu anhu, keep in mind it's the Khalifa now, the leader of all of the Muslims. And we know what Umar did during his time. We all know what the Prophet said about Umar, and how virtuous he was, how physically and spiritually strong he was as a man. And many of his advisors, his cabinet, his inner board of people who spoke with him and he would seek their advice, it says that they were young companions. They were Sahaba who had memorized the Quran, who had studied the Quran, and they were young guys. They weren't older. All of them didn't have great beards, but they were Sahaba. They were what? Sighar. So what is the point we're trying to get from this hadith? Hasib is what? Is that Umar radiallahu anhu perhaps someone didn't agree with him having these kids as his advisors and consulting these kids, as we would say today in the masjid. This kid is the imam. This kid is giving a talk, right? This kid can't be the leader, so on and so forth. But Umar radiallahu anhu, we said that his actions were what? What were they? What did we just say? That Umar was a person who was what? Huh? We said something in the beginning of the talk. Something about, this is the whole connection between that and this, is what? That Umar, his what? He was what? We said he was what? Divinely inspired. He was what? Divinely inspired from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In other words, Umar radiallahu anhu, realizing the importance of the Muslim youth and the purity of their souls and the sharpness of their minds and the lack of clouding that many young people have. Because older people, many times, their judgment is what? It's clouded through stress, worry, problems, sins. Many people, they're not honest, they're hiding something, and the list goes on. Depression and sadness. These things do not fall upon the youth as much as they fall upon what? Older people. Everybody understand this? So Umar radiallahu anhu, we said what? Is that he had what? He was divinely inspired. And perhaps Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspired him to make the young companions who had knowledge, who had piety, who were pure, to be what? From his advisors. Everybody understand this point that we're trying to get to? Is that this wasn't a mistake. It wasn't something that Umar just thought about and he did, but it was something that we say perhaps Allah Azza wa Jalla what? Steered him in the right direction of doing. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he realized the importance of Muslim youth and how these guys, not only are they, what we just mentioned to you, the virtue of the youth, but they're going to be the future. And it's impossible for me to take someone, a man or woman, a girl or boy, who I intend to make the future and the leaders and the people that are going to take care of us when we get older, later on. Rather, this training, this cultivation, and this sense of worth and value, instilling in the youth that you mean something and that you have a lot of responsibilities on your shoulders, it has to be done at a young age. And if it is not done at a young age, early on, don't think that you're going to do it later on. And this applies to any aspect of life, not just religion. Not just what? Not just of what? Religion. Importance, greatness, courage, honesty, integrity. And the list goes on of these things. They have to be instilled in the child, what? From a young age. As we mentioned in the tarbiyah. Everybody understand this? And teaching your children, your Muslim youth, that you're special. You're special. You're not like the average youth. You have a sense of value, a sense of worth. Where you come from. Not your family, but of Islam. Everybody understand this? Greatness doesn't happen when a person is older, 18, 19, 20. It doesn't happen like that. It happens when? A young age. Wayne Gretzky, what did he say? He said, I used to play hockey in the living room when I was 3 years old with a ball and a hockey stick. I couldn't skate. He couldn't do this. He was a young child, and he played hockey. And now they call him what? The great one. Everybody understand the point that we're trying to get to, making a dunya analogy. An analogy from the what? The dunya. He didn't wait till he's 15 years old, 18 years old, 20 years old to start playing hockey. His father, he instilled him what? Young age. So the concept of greatness, the concept of importance, the concept of what it means to be a Muslim youth is very important for us to speak about and to talk about. So we want to talk about today, bi'idhnillah, is one of those young Sahaba, one of the youth from the companions who was very virtuous, who had a great deal of knowledge and a great deal of importance to the Muslims. Everybody understand this? To the Muslims. There are many of them, such as we all know Anas bin Malik, for example, Hassan and Hussein, radiallahu anhuma, Abdullah ibn Abbas, Abdullah ibn Umar, and then many of the what? Sighar Sahaba, the young companions that grew up and they did a lot for themselves and for Islam. And who we want to talk about today is a famous companion who was very young, and we're going to benefit from his life bi'idhnillah in 2016 and in Boonton, New Jersey, especially when we talk about adversity and we talk about challenges, we talk about stereotypes and prejudice, we talk about obstacles that the Muslim youth may face. That the Muslim youth, what? They may face on a daily basis, especially in the times in which we live in right now. Especially in the times of what we live in right now. Everybody understand this? And it doesn't mean when we give these talks that you have to be what Saif, that you just grow up to be a scholar or an imam or a superly duperly religious type of person, which we hope that you will be. That's the best thing. That's what I want for my brothers and sisters in Islam. And then we said this before, I'm biased in my view. I've been said this, right, Brother Gould? I'm biased. If it was up to me, everyone would be what? An imam and a person of knowledge. Because that's the best thing to do. As the Prophet ﷺ says, "Man yuridillahu bihi khayran yufaqihu fi din." Whoever Allah wants good for, He gives them fiqh of the religion. He gives them understanding of the deen. However, we know that this is not mandatory. It's not mandatory. That's firstly. Secondly, it isn't a reality. Everyone is not going to be an imam. Everyone is not going to be a scholar. Everyone is not going to be this and that. There are different levels of people, different talents. And the Muslims as a whole, we need different things. We need people who know medicine, people who know engineering. All these things are needed. And if it wasn't for these things, I wouldn't be here today. This microphone wouldn't be in my hand, nor would the lights be on. But the concept of what I want, which I feel is best, is different. So therefore, we say what? Is that this talk, say, if it is not just for those who want to be imams when they grow up. What do you want to be when you grow up? A doctor. Okay, you want to be a doctor. What kind of doctor?
Like a surgeon.
A surgeon. What kind of surgeon?
For like people who lose limbs.
Okay, calisthenic limbs and things like this. Orthopedic surgery, that's what it's called. Inshallah, may Allah make you successful. I mean, you need these benefits. You need these points of advice. You need to benefit from the spirituality of the companions, even if you want to be a doctor. And many people today, they think that this is only for those who go to religious school. They think this thing is only for those. No. Every Muslim has a basic responsibility. Every Muslim. The surgeon, the engineer, and the imam of the masjid. They all have a level of responsibility for themselves and for Allah and for others. And every Muslim is supposed to be righteous and pious. It's not a ticket or certificate to be wicked and sinful just because you're not an imam of a masjid. But the doctor should be pious like the imam should be pious. Everybody understand this? So everyone needs this type of motivational speeches, let alone the concept of what? We said the challenges and the obstacles that you, Saif, are going to face in the field of medicine. You're going to face challenges with people that are for you, people that are against you, people that want to help you, people that don't want you to succeed. You understand? So you always need this constant what? Benefit. Everybody clear on this, inshallah? So the companion that we're going to speak about is who? Who can take a guess? Who we're going to talk about today? Follow, I'm hungry. Not Mu'adh bin Jabal. Anybody else? Anybody else can take a guess? What's your name, Akhi?
Faiz.
Faiz. May Allah make you successful. I mean, who are we going to talk about?
Omar.
Who?
Omar.
Not Omar. Good guess. Anybody else? He's a young companion. What's your name, Akhi?
Abu Bakr.
Abu Bakr. MashaAllah. Who are you going to talk about? Oh, Abu Bakr. Or your name or Abu Bakr? Which one?
We're going to talk about Abu Bakr.
No, we're not going to talk about Abu Bakr. Anybody else? Not Abu Hurairah. We're talking about somebody young, a young companion. Not Anas. Good guess, but not Anas. Not Abdullah bin Abbas. You mentioned that. Who? La. Tayyip. Last guess.
Ali.
Who?
Ali radiallahu
Not Ali radiallahu anhu. Somebody. Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I'm taking a guess. Ali.
La. Tayyip. We're going to talk about a companion whose name is Usamah ibn Zayd. Usamah what? Ibn Zayd radiallahu anhuma. Usamah ibn Zayd. This companion, wallahi, like many other companions, not just him, you read his life, is marvelous. And some of the things that he achieved at a young age, some of the obstacles that he had to overcome, and his legacy and the legacy of his father, and the list goes on. So we're going to read, hopefully, take a selection from the book called Siyaru A'lam al-Nubala. Al-Hafidh al-Dhahabi, rahimahullah, one of the greatest students of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, the great historian and hadith master of the 8th century, al-Dhahabi. He has a book, a very exhaustive set of volumes, in which he speaks on the biographies of the righteous Muslims of the past. Starting with the Prophet ﷺ, Sirah, the companions, those who succeeded them for many, many generations up to his era or his generation. He says here, Usamah ibn Zayd ibn Haritha ibn Shurahil ibn Abd al-Uzza ibn Imr al-Qais المولى الأمير الكبير حب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ومولاه وابن مولاه أبو زيد ويقال أبو محمد ويقال أبو حارثة وقيل أبو يزيد. استعمله النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على جيش لغزو الشام، وفي الجيش عمر والكبار، فلم يسر حتى توفي رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم، فبادر الصديق ببعثهم فأغاروا على أبناء من ناحية البلقاء، وقيل أنه شهد يوم موت مع والده، وقد سكن المزة مدة ثم رجع إلى المدينة فمات بها، وقيل مات بوادي القرى. حدث عنه أبو هريرة وابن عباس وأبو وائل وأبو عثمان النهدي وعربة بن الزبير وأبو سلمة وأبو سعيد المقبري وعامر بن سعد وأبو ظبيان وعطاء بن أبي رباح وعدة وابناه حسن ومحمد. ثابت عن أسامة أنه قال: كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يأخذني والحسن فيقول: اللهم إني أحبهما فأحبهما. قلت: هو كان أكبر من الحسن بأزيد من 10 سنين، وكان شديد السواد خفيف الروح شاطرا شجاعا، رباه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأحبه كثيرا، وهو ابن حاضنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أم أيمن، وكان أبوه أبيض، وقد فرح له رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بقول مجزز المدرجي: إن هذه الأقدام بعضها من بعض. أبو عوانة عن عمر بن سلمة عن أبيه: أخبرني أسامة بن زيد أن علي قال: يا رسول الله، أي أهلك أحب إليك؟ قال: فاطمة. قال: إنما أسألك عن الرجال. قال: من أنعم الله عليه وأنعمت عليه؟ أسامة بن زيد. قال: ثم من؟ قال: ثم أنت. وروى مغيرة عن الشعبي أن عائشة قالت: ما ينبغي لأحد أن يبغض أسامة بعدما سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول: من كان يحب الله ورسوله فليحب أسامة. وقالت عائشة في شأن المخزومة التي سرقت: فقالوا: من يجتري على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فيها إلا أسامة حب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. موسى بن عقبة وغيره عن سالم عن ابن عمر قال: قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم: أحب الناس إلي أسامة ما حاشا فاطمة ولا غيرها. قال زيد بن أسلم عن أبيه إلى آخره. الذهبي rahimahullah, in this book, like many of the great historians of the Muslims and the scholars of Hadith, when they speak about a man or a woman, they're giving someone a biography. They give their name, the name of their fathers, the name of their grandfathers, what tribe they come from, what clan they come from, what region they live in, where were they born, where did they die, were they people who were once in slavery, were they manumitted and freed and let go, etc. And then they also speak about what scholars of Hadith collected their narrations. And they also talk about who they narrated from and who narrated from them. And then in the biography, they list some of the virtues of that person or some of the vices of that person. So when you're writing a biography of Furuz, this is how you want to start off. Name, father's name, grandfather's name, and the lineage, clan, tribe, country, and profession. Where is this hadith fountain? Who is it collected by? Who did he narrate from? Some of his what? Teachers, and some of his what? Students. You don't need to write anything down, Furuz. Put the pen down. No notes. Everybody clear on this. And then you want to mention some of their virtues or some of their what? Vices. So Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah, he says this man's name is Usamah, the son of Zaid, the son of Haritha, the son of Sharahil, the son of Abdul Uzza, the son of Imr al-Qais, al-Mawla, who was manumitted, al-Amir al-Kabir, and he was a major leader of the Muslims. And he was the one that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ was very fond of, and he loved him greatly. He and his father were both slaves, and the Messenger of Allah ﷺ manumitted them. He freed them. His hadith, or the hadith that he reported, can be found in all 6 mother books of hadith. All 6 mother books of hadith: Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawood, At-Tirmidhi, An-Nasa'i, and Ibn Majah. As far as his kunya, you know that it's sunnah in Islam for men and women to have kunyas. Even if you don't have children, even if you're young, it's a sunnah. It's a recommended act. And the kunya is a means of respect, affection, and closeness. In other words, I can call you by your first name. I say Basil or Sheikh Basil, Imam Basil. But when I say Abu Hatim, it is more respect. It's closer. It's me honoring him more, but at the same time, there is no, and I'm not saying this about Bassett, but a person, he may say that to flatter someone, call him sheikh or imam. He may say that flattering him. Or somebody may say it's sucking up to somebody. Sheikh, sheikh, sheikh. You understand what I'm saying? Honestly. Or imam, imam, imam. Or doctor, or whatever the case may be. Ustad or professor. But when you call somebody by the kunya, it's also a great deal of respect, and it's a means of affection. So therefore the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is for you to have a kunya. Your oldest child, or one of your daughters, or one of your sons, you should be known as Abu Muhammad, the father of Fulan, Fulan, the mother of such and such. It's a means of what? Respect. So when they talk about the biography of someone, they also mention their kunyas. Everybody understand this? And we know there were many children of the Prophet ﷺ, young Sahaba, that had what? Kunyas. And that's also a means of instilling responsibility in the child. And teaching them that you're not that young, but inshallah one day you're going to have what? Children. Everybody understand this? Call your daughter such and such, the mother of such and such. Just like you give your daughter a doll baby. Why do you think girls like to play with doll babies? And why do women give them doll babies? Not just because it's a toy. They can play with any toy. But it's a girl. It's also what? Instilling it. Right. You'll have a child one day. Everybody understand this? So this is Islamic psychology as well. Is this not the case? This is Islamic psychology as well. Everybody clear on this? So therefore his kunya was Abu Zayd. And some say his kunya was Abu Muhammad. Others say Abu Haritha, and others say Abu Zayd. Khair inshallah. From his virtues is that the Prophet ﷺ placed him as the general to lead the conquest of Shem, the place or the area of Syria and the surrounding areas of Syria. He made him the general. And among that army, or among the army was who? He says Umar and the Kibar, the major companions. So just ponder this now. This boy, he's young. He was once a slave. His father was once a slave. The Prophet ﷺ put him in charge of the army in which there was Umar ibn Khattab. He put him in charge of an army in which there were major companions. There had to be a certain characteristic of this young man that qualified him to be in charge of the Muslims. Not to lead the Salah, which is important. Not to lead the people in Hajj, which is important. We're talking about a battle in which there's major responsibility, knowledge, experience, wisdom, courage. All of these things must be found in the general. He can't be afraid, and he must instill that bravery in others. He's responsible for people's lives, people's souls. So this is not an average person that we're talking about right here. Let alone to put him in front of other people that were better than him. People that were what? Higher, bigger, and stronger than him. So this is very important for the Muslim youth. And it goes to show you once again the psychology of the Prophet ﷺ Sunnah, how he made the young people feel what? Important. And sometimes his words are not enough. Sometimes what? Words are not what?
You had a question?
Oh, yeah. But if
It's not a question and answer session, Nafis. It's okay. Tafadhal, go ahead.
if the general dies in the army, is there like a backup?
Yes, there's a backup general. And the backup general should be someone similar to the general himself. Just like we have an assistant coach on a team. Coach gets fired, right? Defensive coordinator, or maybe they bring someone else. Right, inshallah. So, moving on. May Allah bless you, Nafis. I mean, love us. You know I'm messing with you. Al-Muhim, what is important here is that this man is in charge of people's lives. Let alone there are people that are more virtuous than him, that are better than Usamah. And the Prophet ﷺ, he made him the general to show him what? Not by words, but by actions. So sometimes you may have to tell your son, I'm leaving, you're in charge. What do you mean? What I'm going to do? Make sure you take care of the house. When I come back, everything will be intact, right? That's not the same as you saying you're important, son. I love you. You're my oldest. It's not the same. It's not the same. Or you tell your young daughter, you're in charge of doing this. We're going out. You're gonna drive me, and you're gonna decide what we're gonna do, and you're gonna take care of this. Sometimes you have to what? Push the people ahead and force them to what? Rise to the occasion. Everybody understand this? So therefore, he says that he put him in charge of the army of the Muslims that were going to Shem. He says, but he did not immobilize the army. He didn't travel. He didn't travel what? He didn't travel until the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. Until he what? Until the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam died. فَبَادَرَ الصَّدِيقُ بِبَعْثِهِمْ Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, he immediately told him to move out. And we're going to mention later on in the story that Zaid or Osama radiallahu anhu, he didn't want to go out and fight. When he heard that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sick, he heard that he was ill, he went back. And he was told to what? Return and move forward. Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, they did fought a battle at a place called Ubna. And some of them say that he witnessed the battle of Mu'ta with his father, radiallahu anhu. Shortly afterwards, Usamah radiallahu anhu, he went to Syria, a place called Mizza. He then returned to Medina, in which he died. Usamah ibn Zayd narrated from Abu Hurairah, Ibn Abbas, excuse me. These companions narrated from him, which is another means of his virtue. That they narrate from the Prophet, he also narrated from Usamah ibn Zayd. Abu Hurairah narrated from him, Ibn Abbas, Abu Wa'il, from the Tabi'een, he was Mukhadram. And in general, brothers and sisters, as a benefit in Islam and in the sciences of Hadith, we have people who are called Al-Mukhadramun. And Al-Mukhadram man shahid al-jahiliyyah wal-Islam wa lam yara al-Nabiy alayhi salatu wa-salam. People who are kuffar, mushrikeen, they were not Muslims, and then they accepted Islam in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, but they didn't meet the Prophet ﷺ. So they were not Sahaba. They didn't get a chance to sit in his blessed presence and to see his beautiful face. So they're not counted from the Sahaba, but they are called Mukhadram. It's like in between. They're not Tabi'een, nor they what? Sahaba. And this man here, Abu Wa'il, he was from the people who went to Medina to meet the Prophet ﷺ. And he died, the Prophet ﷺ died when he was on the outskirts of Medina. He was almost there. And mashallah, it wasn't decreed for him to be from a Sahaba. Imagine how that felt. He traveled on the way to meet the Prophet, and just before he got there, it wasn't his destiny. Khair inshallah. So therefore, Abu Uthman al-Nahdi, Urwa ibn Zubayr, Abu Salama, Abu Sa'id al-Maqbidi, Amir ibn Sa'd, the son of Sa'd ibn Abu Qas, Abu Dhabiyan, Ata ibn Abi Rabah, the great student of Ibn Abbas, and many others, they narrated from him. And he had two sons, Hassan and Muhammad. It is authentically reported that the Prophet ﷺ that Osama said he used to grab me and Hassan. Hassan was his grandson. And he would sit us in his lap. And he would say, "Oh Allah, indeed I love these two, so love them." He asked Allah to love them both. So therefore, he says that he was older than Hassan by 10 years. He was older than Hassan by what? By 10 years. And this hadith teaches us, brothers and sisters, how the Prophet ﷺ dealt with those who are around him. He didn't discriminate his children and those who weren't his children, as many of us do. This is my son and this is my stepson. This is my daughter and this is my stepdaughter. Everybody understand this? This is my niece, my nephew from this person. No, he didn't do that. Those who were with him were all considered, and he treated them like his sons. And he loved them and he respected all of them. So the teacher, the imam, the leader of the household, this is what they should do. And the youth as well, they should feel loved by all of those that they come in contact in this building. When you come into this building, no one should harm you. No one should look down upon you or look at you funny. Why are you sitting like that? Why are you dressed like this? And so on and so forth. You should feel welcome and come to the masjid. Everybody understand this? Then when it comes to making the salah and a child coming on the front row, there may be some madhabs or maybe some cultural practices in which a child is not allowed to be on the front row. A child is not allowed to pray directly behind the imam. They say, no, go to the back. Is this not the case? They may holler at the child, hit the child, grab him by his ears. Is this not the case? Go, scat, skidoo. Scramble, they may say, right? In whatever language they speak. This is a reality. Many madhabs and cultural practices. Is this not the case? Children cannot pray on the front row. Everybody understand this? Some of the scholars of Islam, they say children shouldn't pray on the front row. But there's a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ tells us that no man should make another man leave his place and leave his spot. In other words, if the 12-year-old or the 10-year-old or 8-year-old comes to the masjid first and sits on the front row, the hadith says you can't get up and tell him to go to the back. Everybody understand this? Shaykh Ibn Zayd, rahimahullah, he says from the harms of doing this is that you're going to get the child to hate the masjid. And he's not going to want to come to the congregational prayer. Because every time I come to the masjid, somebody hollers at me. Somebody says, sit down, be quiet, go to the back, you're too young, you're too this. Everybody understand this? That's not what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. It's not how he treated them. They loved being in his company. Why does the imam have no contact with the children? Why is there such a gap between the older community members and the youth? We were talking about this yesterday. Most masjids that we go to, 9 out of 10, we have the older brothers and then we have the younger brothers. That's it. And in most cases, there's a major tie that's been severed between the two. The youth don't speak to the older brothers and sisters. There's no love, there's no affection. It's Sheikh Fulan and young Fulan, that's it. Why is this? From the reasons behind this is that we're not implementing these hadiths. How the Prophet ﷺ treated someone who was his grandson and someone who wasn't from his lineage. Let alone the Prophet ﷺ's stepson, how he treated them, how he respected them, and he did not allow them to do whatever they wanted to do. He also instructed them as well, he taught them. He didn't just allow them to run crazy and do whatever you want to do. No. There's structure in Islam, son. You want to be a surgeon, Seth? You have to have discipline. You have to have structure. And if you don't have discipline and structure in your religion, with your Lord, with Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala, what other structure are you going to have? What other discipline are you going to have? If you don't have basic work ethics and values with Allah, how are you going to do that when it comes to taking somebody's hand off and putting it back on? What prevents you from cheating or cutting a corner or hiding information or charging someone extra? So this concept of integrity, this concept of discipline, spiritual and physical, is important in Islam. So therefore, Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentions this hadith that the Prophet ﷺ used to grab both of them and he would say, "Oh Allah, indeed I love them both, so please love them both." Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says he was older than Hassan by 10 years. He then says, describing his physical appearance and his character, he says that he had very dark skin. He had a very easy, light-going soul. He was a happy type of guy. He was very intelligent and he was very brave. And the Prophet ﷺ raised him personally and he was very fond of him. He was very fond of him. Usamah ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu, his mother was the one who breastfed the Prophet ﷺ, Ayman. And Zaid, his father, had lighter skin. So some of the kuffar of Mecca and some of the mushrikeen, they spoke ill of him and of his father. And they said that it isn't his son because he's light skinned and he's dark skinned. So the Prophet ﷺ, to rebuke these people and what they were saying, he brought the person who was called a what? A qa'if. And a qa'if is basically a traditional, cultural person who looks at people and determines if they're related or not. Someone, he would look at a person's fingertips, their feet, hair, how they talk. He would figure out who's the father, who's the child, who's the mother. If there was a dispute. People in the past, they had disputes over these things. That's not my child. It's not my son. Just like today. That's not my daughter. You said DNA test, right? Yeah, this was the what? DNA. The traditional what? DNA test. Everybody understand this? Yeah. So the man, he looked at their feet one day. He saw them. He looked at them and they were standing from behind. And he says, "Inna hadi al-aqdam ba'daha min ba'd." He says, indeed, their feet are the same feet. He says, that's that man's son. That's that man's father. Look at their feet. Everybody understand this? Why your kids today? He has a big toe. Habib, just like you or your finger or whatever the case may be. Everybody understand this? So therefore, this is the first benefit from the story is what? Well, not the first benefit, is that Usamah radiallahu anhu, he lived in a time in which there was a great deal of prejudice, a great deal of racism. And the Arab people, just like many other people, black, white, yellow, and red, they were people that were very clannish. Okay?